Thank you for the introduction. I want to thank Todd, Denise, and Debbie for all that they're doing here with the Rural Council. I know you had a great meeting on Monday. I'm glad to be part of your agenda here for Wednesday. We've got some South Dakotans in the audience, so we're well represented here in Denver, one of our neighboring states. But it's an honor for me to be here to talk with you today. I'm a farm girl from northeastern South Dakota. I grew up on my family's farm and ranch. I remember my dad's moods being dictated by the weather, especially in the spring and the summer months as we headed into the fall for harvest. I remember neighbors who suffered disasters. I went to a small country school of 9 kids in my class until I was in 4th grade, graduated from a consolidated school district with 55 kids in my class, and then I went out to Washington, D.C. to go to college. And it didn't take me long to realize that most of my fellow students at Georgetown University considered South Dakota and a lot of other parts of rural America the flyover states, hadn't spent a whole lot of time getting family trips into rural America, even though we have so much to offer. And I got very involved with the college Democrats, of course. I was able to introduce then Governor Clinton from Arkansas when he gave his series of 3 speeches at Georgetown University when he was seeking the nomination and running for president in 1992. That was the first time I had a chance to meet and get to know Bill and Hillary Clinton, who've done so much for the party and who've done so much for rural America in a number of different capacities. But I also knew throughout the 90s that while I was finishing college and law school, that many of my friends who had stayed home in South Dakota, who finished up college and went back to the farm or were starting businesses or looking to expand them in rural America were struggling. They were struggling with a whole number of factors in which rural America wasn't competing as well as I thought that we should, or didn't have as good a voice as I felt that we should have in telling our story, what the unique challenges are in rural America, and of course what rural America had to offer. And in the fall of 2000, when Senator Daschle invited me to a leadership retreat and asked the question as he encouraged young people from across South Dakota to get involved in public service, if not you, who, and if not now, when, I answered that question shortly thereafter, decided to run, as Denise mentioned, for Congress in 2002. And I came up short in that first race, in part because there were a number of issues that I felt that the Republican Party at the national level did nationalize that election that didn't play well for candidates in rural America. In particular, it didn't play well for women candidates in rural America. And I think that we learned lessons from that campaign. I think as the Democratic Party as a whole, we learned lessons from that election cycle. And we were able to come back in 2004, and I was able to win a special election with the help of a lot of people in this room, a lot of people nationally in the Democratic Party, as the late Bob Matsui and now Speaker Nancy Pelosi made sure that everyone knew that there was a special election going on in South Dakota. And with their help and with Senator Daschle and Senator Johnson, I was able to eke it out in 2004. And then following re-election in 2000, the general election, Speaker Pelosi, then Leader Pelosi, who you may know when she was the chair of the California State Party, had set up a rural working group because she knew that given California's diversity, that this wasn't just about the strength of the Democrats in urban cities across California. This was about building partnerships and bridging gaps with those Democrats who lived in rural parts of California. And she took a model that worked for her in California and made sure that it worked for her again, and she became whip and then leader, and now is speaker. And for the past 2 Congresses, she's given me the honor of co-chairing the Rural Working Group to make sure that we're at the table on policy issues that matter for a democratic agenda on innovation and on economic prosperity for every region of the country. Leading up to the 2006 election, she tasked the Rural Working Group to put together the energy independence package for our innovation agenda, where we advance biofuels, cellulosic ethanol, all of the other things that we know need to happen to advance wind and solar energy in rural parts of the country, with the grid that's necessary, the infrastructure investment, the investment in telecommunications, so that we can bring jobs onshore rather than overseas. And that is the great strength of our innovation agenda, investing in rural America, and being able to I really enjoyed working with Congressman Walz. He's a neighbor there in Minnesota. Senator Klobuchar as well, and she's a great partner to work with in the Senate chamber. We have been working on a big regional water system project together that helps South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. We worked together on the 2008 Farm Bill to make sure that we enacted provisions and reauthorized provisions good for beginning farmers and ranchers, disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, those who are looking to make their livelihoods from the land as we look to pass on to the next generation the wonderful quality of life that we grew up with in rural America. We have a number of things to be proud of. In a 2008 Farm Bill that was a priority of Speaker Pelosi to get passed, that was a priority of Colin Peterson, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee, to get passed. We worked in a bipartisan way all the way through the House Agriculture Committee, but unfortunately, our Republican colleagues abandoned us on the House floor by following the Bush administration's lead on how to characterize the pay-for, the offset. It was a very similar offset to what the Bush administration proposed in the past, but they decided to call it a tax increase instead of closing a loophole. But we were tenacious. Speaker Pelosi was with us every step of the way. We dealt in good faith both with the White House and our Senate colleagues, and we were able to pass a farm bill good for rural America in every region of the country in 2008 on the Democratic road. One thing I'd like to address before turning it back over to Denise and Debbie here is the issue of sort of not so much the policy as we move forward and looking at healthcare reform and making sure that for both patients and providers in rural America, that any reform policies we undertake reflect, again, our unique needs as well as our unique strengths. Same for energy policy and what we have to offer the rest of the country, but also the challenges we face because we have to drive quite a ways sometimes to our jobs or to get our kids to school, and the impact that has on rural businesses' budgets. But all of these issues come down to the fact that we have to win in 2008 to transform what we want to do with policy initiatives good for rural America that I think are going to be good for the rest of the country. And I think that Governor Dean's 50-state strategy has really made the kind of investment. I've seen it with our own party in South Dakota, with the state party and the strengths of the individuals we've been able to hire for our organizing, for our legislative platform, for our field work that we do in the press and outreach that we've done with that investment from the DNC. We know how to win these elections in rural America. No one's demonstrated that better, in my opinion, than the gentleman we heard from last night, Governor Schweitzer, who Denise mentioned, was able to unify us and get us riled up. I mean, the last line of his speech, he invited me out to Montana in April for their big Mansfield-Metcalf dinner, and he's one of a kind, to be sure, but he understands, just as all of us in this room understand, the politics of rural America. As Governor Dean said, I think that our colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have taken rural America for granted. They haven't always been straight with them. They haven't always followed through on the promises and pledges they made to rural America over the course of the campaign. This is an opportunity for us to grow our party in those regions of the country where we've faced some challenges and barriers that many of us have overcome. Whether it's Governor Schweitzer, whether it's me, whether it's Tim Walz, Amy Klobuchar, in rural parts of the country, where we listen, where we understand, where we partner, where we work together, and we work with our colleagues in the Congress and with these dynamic governors from across the West and other parts of the country that represent rural America, to make sure that our party agenda is about economic prosperity for every region of the country. And so it's been great to see the Rural Council elevated and given the kind of attention from the DNC that it's gotten under the leadership of Governor Dean, that those of us that represent rural America are proud to participate in with folks that are dedicated to advancing the cause for rural America, to ensure that a quality of life continues to exist for those who want the choice of a lifestyle that perhaps is different from urban America or suburban America, and we've seen more and more young families looking to perhaps get away from some of the congestion and the traffic that they've been dealing with ever since they left home and went to college or took that job in the city, and they want to get home closer to family, closer to grandparents, especially when they look to settle down. And that's why continuing to invest in our infrastructure in rural America and policies that offer a level